Almost every shell in Marathon has a tightly defined role and strength. Destroyer excels at taking aggressive gunfights. Vandal thrives at making nasty flanks and executing from above. Recon gives you tons of info for enemy positions. But the Thief can do it all. I'm Riley from Perfect Game Whatever, and I'm here to teach you how to use the Thief shell for things other than looting everything that isn't nailed down. First, I'm going to go through all the abilities in the kit and teach you how to use them correctly. And first, we have the Thief's prime ability, Pickpocket Drone. So when you activate this ability, you instantly deploy a little remotely piloted flying drone in front of you. This drone does a lot of different things and is pretty versatile. So first of all, enemies will be outlined in the color that represents their highest value item. And that goes hand in hand with the fact that the drone has a little hook that can be shot out. So when you hit an enemy with this hook, an item of that highest tier value will be popped out of them onto the ground. So then at that point, you can hit that item on the ground one more time and it'll be added to your drone's inventory. So yeah, your drone has its own entire inventory and you can access that inventory while piloting it, check, see what you picked up, and then fly it back to yourself and access the inventory to grab the items. Otherwise, when the drone gets shot down or runs out of juice, it'll fall to the ground, leaving all the items in its inventory at that spot. But really, the drone is just an insanely good scouting tool. There are infinite situations in which this thing can help your team avoid or find a fight. And that highlighting of enemies just makes it super useful for really dark spaces or maybe when enemies are obscured by a bunch of grass. It makes it very easy to see where they're at. So note that you can switch on and off the drone as it's up. So that drone just has a ticking time that's remaining and it'll keep ticking even when you're off the drone. So it's just that set amount from when you activate the ability the first time. And that drone can be shot and destroyed. But in my experience, it can actually sustain a decent amount of shots. But also note that bots will aggro to this drone. And it's pretty easy to dodge their bullets. But just know that enemy runners will easily be able to hear when like a turret locks onto your drone. But also you can use it as a distraction as well. Like just trigger a turret on the other side of a point of interest. The enemies will think that a runner's over there while actually your team is on the other side waiting to flank. The drone's hook can be used to activate a ton of different things, including doors. So that means you could just navigate a lot of indoor spaces with this drone if you want to. In particular, Pinwheel can be completely scouted out with this thing. But just know that those keypads that are in Pinwheel on each of the arms cannot be activated by a drone. So keep that in mind. And one other thing I found out is that you can actually activate the flock of birds by shooting your hook at them. So I guess that could just be another really niche distraction tool. So the Pickpocket drone does make a pretty distinct noise. Like if you buzz around an enemy's head, they'll pretty easily know you're there. And when you shoot the hook, it makes a very clear noise and the enemy will get a hit marker when they're hit. So in general, try to keep it out of sight and out of hearing range. And you can take the drone really high up. So I usually do that in an outdoor space. And also note that specific high tier enemies such as wardens won't really drop items when hit with the hook. But overall, the Pickpocket drone is just an amazing recon tool. It has that little added benefit of the little hook play, but for the most part, it's amazing at scouting out locations before you get to them. And next we have the second ability in the Thief shell, which is the grapple device. And this might shock you. It's a grappling hook. With this ability, you can quickly propel yourself in any direction, and it allows the Thief to be one of the most dexterous shells in the game. It gives you lightning fast positioning, makes Thief by far the fastest class to be able to change position, but you will only be able to do it once. So there is a cooldown of about a minute, but often I'm able to use it a couple times in a prolonged fight, but you just can't spam it like you would be able to the Vandal's double jump or something like that. If you're starting a battle on the ground, you can then instantly fly up a building for the high ground the second you make contact with enemy runners. Or if you're getting picked off from afar, you can turn around, instantly yeet yourself behind cover. You can also cancel the grapple mid-animation to retain more momentum if you're trying to really come in hot or do some tricky movement tech. But also, you can grapple anything, even the empty air. Like you don't actually have to point it at any object. But you can point it at an object such as a glass window and you'll burst right through it. So it's amazing for those completely unexpected flanks through a window up into a building. There have been a lot of occasions where enemy runners are completely unaware of my flank because I just flew through the window behind them while they're focusing on my teammates ahead of them. Also, the grapple device completely negates fall damage when timed and aimed correctly. So just shoot at towards the ground. As long as your grapple animation ends below fall damage height, you'll take no damage. But the grappling hook can be a little janky at times. You just have to be super aware of your entire character model having to pass through whatever space you're trying to grapple. So whenever I'm trying to do like a little slick move in a constrained or indoor location, I very often get caught on a lip of a box or a window or something and end up falling down. So there is a little bit of a learning curve to determine what you're able to grapple through and not. But the next ability we have is the X-ray visor. So when activated, it highlights hostiles and containers in the color of the most valuable item they're storing. And while active, aiming at a hostile will hack their optics, disrupting their vision until you look away. So do note that it'll only highlight hostiles that you can see directly, but you can see containers through walls. And this ability just has so many looting applications where it's extremely useful, like trying to choose which lockbox to open, just pop the visor, grab the highest rarity colored one. If you need to quickly loot an arm of Pinwheel and then get the fuck out, pop the visor, beeline towards the best containers and get your ass out of there. Also can help in dark or expansive rooms to quickly locate where all the containers are, so you're not wasting time fucking around. If you have a few keys to open a loot supply room, just use your visor to check before you even open it to see if it's worth hitting or not, or if you should just rotate to a different one, or if you're running a sponsor kit and need to locate a weapon locker as fast as possible for you and your crewmates, instantly scope out the whole area and you can beeline for it. And honestly, this visor is extremely useful in a lot of combat scenarios too. Like in very specific fights, it can completely win it for you. It creates a bright highlight around all the enemy combatants nearby, and the key thing is that it completely sees enemies that are either in smoke or invisible. So yeah, it completely counters assassin. If you're annoyed by assassins in solos, just play thief. And as for the hacking ability, it's mostly just useful against bots because you'll have to stare at an enemy for a decent bit of time before it'll actually get hacked. And you'll see this little meter on top of the enemy indicating the progress for them getting hacked, and it'll damage the vision of the enemy. So I mostly just use it to disable powerful bots or turrets from shooting at our teammates. But most of the time in gunfights with runners, you won't have long enough line of sight to trigger the hack, but can still be good when you have a jump on enemy runners. Just much more rare. But the X-ray visor just lasts a pretty long time and has a very short cooldown. So I honestly just spam this thing constantly. I don't really think it's worth saving for those niche fight scenarios since it only takes like 30 seconds to cool down anyway. Like it's very rare that I'm in a fight where I want it and I don't have it available. I pretty much pop this thing anytime I even think about looting. Also know that the colors of the containers get brighter and more clear as you walk closer. So from afar, you'll see a lot of white, and then as you get closer to them, you'll see that they turn, you know, blue or purple, etc. So don't think that a room in the distance is full of garbage because it's all white stuff. You're just not close enough yet. And you could just use it to see where key unlooted rooms are at, and then you'll be able to discern the best containers as you approach it. And then the final trait of the Thief Shell is the finer things. This gives you increased weapon handling and accelerated grapple device recharge rate based on the number of items in your backpack. This makes it much more worth it to fill your backpack with garbage early on and replace as you go, but I know you're picking up every single item you see anyway. This mostly affects weapon equip and swap time, which can have a slight difference in battles, but the real benefit is from the massively reduced grapple cooldown. And this trait is based on the raw number of items, not the space it takes up in your pack. I tested this ability with a purple backpack, and your actual cooldown times will vary based on the number of items and the specific build and upgrades you have. But at the start of a match with only 8 items in my backpack, my grapple cooldown was 57 seconds, and then at the end of the same match with a purple backpack completely full of items, the grapple had a 33-second cooldown, which is pretty much cut in half. Insanely massive difference, especially towards the end of a run when you're stuffed with gear and racing for an exfil or trying to escape bots and runners. It's super useful without you even knowing it. Honestly, just a really good passive bonus that I don't have to think about most of the time. And if you're like me, you're absolutely packing out your inventory lightning fast anyway. So I don't really have to go out of my way to specifically fill it. If you've been liking these shell guides, please like and subscribe. I've got a couple other interesting videos on the way that aren't shell guides. Also, let me know if there's any other specific types of videos you'd like to see in the future. Now I'm going to go into the sort of the general approach for a run with the Thief Shell and start out by showing you the base stats of this shell compared to the other ones. And as you can see here, yeah, it just has amazing loot speed, obviously, with the entire shell being based upon looting. And it has great agility that synergizes super well with all the maneuverability aspects of the shell and the grapple hook. So my first tip for using a shell is that you are better at being recon than the recon shell. The thief shell is much more effective at determining if enemies are around, while the recon shell is much more effective at determining where enemies specifically are, particularly in the middle of a gunfight. When recon activates pulses, you are giving up your location, so its highest utility is when enemies already know your position. But the thief's drone can remain entirely unseen as you gain intel on enemies. The pickpocket drone is just insanely good at mapping out the landscape around you. It's perfect for situations where your team is wary of approaching a POI and you need some confidence that's hostile free, or that you can easily jump the crew that's there. There's just countless times where I catch a rogue rook or even an entire team holding the exact position we were about to push. And then the loot color highlight that the drone gives enemy runners is so good for picking them out in dark spaces. So maybe you hear two teams fighting in the distance, you can easily use your drone to check out where to third party most effectively from, or when's the right time to execute. There are countless applications for the recon usage of this ability. You should be using it as much as possible. My next tip is that you should be the loot Sherpa. You just have so much more privileged loot information than the rest of your team, and your extra visor will allow you to instantly know what areas of a building has the best loot. So just don't be a dickbag. Spread the loot love across your team. Your team might be trying to rip through Pinwheel, knowing that there's a team creeping up on you from behind. You quickly point out the spots worth checking as you try to push through. Cuts out so much of the time your team wastes in menus, which is when you're all at the most vulnerable. This can help you in the end, because your teammate's not going to get ganked while he's in a menu looking for the best loot. You can just tell him exactly where to go, and then you guys can get out of there. And also, it's those most dangerous locations that have the best loot. So being able to get in and get out without getting shot in the back while you sift through 87 briefcases is going to be very useful. And you might even want to use your drone to determine if it's even worth aggroing an enemy team based on the loot they have. They've got all green shit and then dire marsh. Why would you risk attracting the entire map's worth of runners to your position just for some garbage sponsor kits? Just help spread the wealth throughout your team. Also, the thief shell is the most jack of all trades in the entire game. One of the best shells in the entire game due to its insane versatility. It fills so many roles needed on a crew, and you can adapt to whatever your teammates are doing. You play aggro as hell. Be the first one out there taking aggressive gunfights, pulling enemy attention. You can fly around with the grappling hook and absolutely stunt on your enemies from above, or cover vertical and horizontal distance in a moment's time. Or you could play it as an intel op, take a recon role, scout out areas as you approach them, use your drone as the first contact for runner fights as much as possible. You could bring a bunch of energy amps to be able to cut that cooldown time in half, deliver info to your teammates, help them execute off that info, distract enemies with your hook, etc., etc. Or you could play as the secondary contact or a flanker. Allow your teammate to be the one to aggro the enemies. You take a roundabout secondary position to flank. The grappling hook gives you so much room to hit runners from completely unexpected points. You fly up to a window they presumed inaccessible and blast them from behind. So you can oscillate between all of these different roles throughout a single run. The thief can just fill whatever is needed at that exact moment, and you should be looking for gaps as to how you can make as great of an impact as possible with your crew's composition. So now I'm going to go through some of the good ass items and loadouts for the thief shell. And yeah, the shell is just ridiculously versatile. So I don't even know how to pick specific weapons for this. Like, obviously the shotgun's going to be fantastic if you grapple up to enemies and blast them. You could take a more precision rifle or even a sniper rifle and get up to an obscure high position, pop enemies from afar. You can really use any weapons you want. Like, it is very versatile. But as for equipment and consumables, if you do want to spam that drone, do bring energy amps. It'll cut down the cooldown a ton. But honestly, the other two abilities cool down so fast you don't really have to worry about using energy amps for their sake. But yeah, if you're getting kind of crazy with the movement, you could bring a cardio kick so you can just sprint around and slide around as well as use the grappling hook. Once again, you can do a whole lot with this shell. It's up to you. And as for cores, for a green core, the boutique core causes the finer things to also grant weapon reload speed and agility based on the number of items in your backpack. So that just increases this absolute spam ability of the grappling hook. and generally how manic and crazy and all over the place you can play this shell, which is super fun. And for a blue core, the premium package core gives your Pickpocket drone an increased lifetime, and it makes it more resistant to incoming damage. So that just increases the recon kind of role of this shell. You can spam that drone way more. You can use it to more thoroughly check out locations or hop on and off based on info. And then the break and enter core, a gold core. This gives you a second charge for your grapple device. My scoring system for all video games is this: number of grappling hooks times 10 out of 10. Marathon without this core is a 10 out of 10. With this core, it's a 20 out of 10. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. It should be super clear at this point that I think this shell is absolutely fantastic and potentially the best shell in the game just for how many applications and use cases it has. I think there are a few downsides, like it's not as usable in tight, constricted places due to that grappling hook being a little janky in those spots. But overall, this is an amazing shell. Let me know how you feel about it below. Give me other ideas for videos. Thanks for watching, pals.